When do we start the public hearing on that?
That one? Yeah.
How about 9 Acton Road is postponed.
No,
When
but
is
when
the
do we
public
start the public hearing?
I don't know. I think we already have.
Last month?
Last month, yeah.
How much time do we have for that?
Special permits, 120 days?
Yeah. Yeah, we really got to get to it and get it cleaned
We
up.
all set to start, Evan? 6:30?
Yeah. Just give telemedia, should they're listening in, just give
Yeah, I
them-
think I can hear it.
Yep.
You guys all set here?
Yep, we're on the air.
Hello, everyone. We're going to start the meeting tonight, December 8th. It's after 6:30. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting for December 8th, 2021. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia and is being conducted in person in room 204 of the town offices. We continue with the Zoom component links for the public until further notice. We have first the public input. I'm going to read that. The call-in number, by the way, is 929-205-6099. First up is public input. The public input shall be limited to statements from the public relating to any issues with the jurisdiction of the Chelmsford Planning Board that are not currently the subject of a pending public hearing before the Planning Board. Public comment on any pending public hearing shall only be heard during such public hearings. Do we have anybody for public input?
Public input on 255 Princeton Street.
Is that,
Later in the agenda.
Okay.
I guess not.
Nobody.
All right.
All right, next up, Administrative Jackson Road, formerly 240 Groton Road.
So Tim, I'm going to recuse myself on this one.
Okay,
Okay? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. For the record, Melissa Robbins from Fairland Robbins. This is actually a housekeeping item that Evan had brought to my attention. This Form E covenant should have been signed along with the plans when the board re-signed all the plans in August, and it just got left by the wayside. So I'm just resubmitting it for the board to vote and actually sign the covenant so that it can go along with the plans. So if the board could take action to approve the Form E covenant and
Give you a
sign it,
motion.
I would appreciate it.
okay. Can I get a
Well,
motion?
I would move that we endorse the covenant and sign it.
Okay, can I have a second?
Aye.
David, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Henry, you need a second, or you okay? I know you just walked in if you want to catch your
Just
breath.
give me a second, yeah.
Yeah, it's, she's just clearing up. It's the first one, Jackson Road on the,
And for the record, I recuse myself, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to sign the document. My
Right.
name's on the document to be signed, but
you won't sign, okay. Okay.
All right,
Are you an aye?
I'm an aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Unanimous, thank you. Next up, UPS minor modification. Anyone here for UPS?
You have Doug Preston on the Zoom for UPS.
Oh,
Hello, Doug.
Hi, all.
Do you-
I'm going to ask him to present.
Yeah,
Maybe
would
turn-
you like to
turn his
present?
video on as well.
You can go ahead.
turn this video on.
Did you turn your video on, Doug, as well? There's nothing here for me to read, so I don't even know what he's looking for.
Yeah, I know, he'll describe it.
Okay, give me apologies. The video seems to be having technical difficulties with my laptop at the moment.
Do you
but
want to, Doug, why don't you work on that? We'll go to the next thing and come back to you if that's all right.
that works.
All right, next up is 150 North Road, an A&R, request to endorse. Michael and Joan Shijan of 150 North Road request endorsement approval of the approval not required plan for the property at 150 North Road.
There are extra copies for the board members in the box, in the box. The box.
All right.
these things?
Nancy Arroway attending.
She will, Mike.
That's her, that's her.
First year, oh, okay. Yeah. Where does that voice come from?
This it? All right.
Okay, now that everybody's successfully opened up the plan, for the record, Doug Hausler, I'm representing Mike Sheehan and his wife, who are the owners of the property at 150 North Road. And I believe Mike is participating via Zoom. 150 North Road is in fact a very large tract of land, as you can see. It has two frontage lots off of North Road. As shown on the plan that I've submitted to you. Those are, in my opinion, A&R lots. They meet all the requirements of the zoning bylaws, frontage, lot area, et cetera. That is actually the least of my concerns with this plan, but I wanted to get something started with this board so that we could have some discussions going forward. I don't believe that this is your conventional A&R plan. Let me start with that. I would probably request our engineer to prepare ultimately, if we are going to do it by separate ways, equivalent of a two-lot plan showing just the North Road parcels. But the reason I submitted it the way I did was there's also all the additional land along Charles Way. That land has been held up from being developed by my client as an owner for almost 45 years. There was the Charles Way project was originally developed in the 1980s by a gentleman named Morgan, and it was financed through a bank in the 1980s, and there was a tripartite agreement with the town, the bank, and the developer to complete the road and to complete all the requirements to have the street ultimately accepted as a public way. Very traditional, kind of run-of-the-mill thing for you folks. Unfortunately, in the mid-1980s, late 1980s, the bank that was supporting that bond failed, and the FDIC took it over, which then rendered the letter of credit behind the bond useless. By the time that whole thing took place, the planning board at that point in time had already issued partial releases for almost every single home that had been constructed. I think it was all of them, 7 deeds, along what I call the north side or the right side of Charles Way as you drive up. So it was an interesting problem. You have 7 lots that have building permits issued and occupancy permits issued without actual street frontage because the street had never been accepted as a public way. Not to mention the fact that if you go to the south side of Charles Way, all that land that my client has owned and he was waiting to develop because he wanted to use that as frontage, which is what you have before you. For now, 35 plus 40 years, somewhere in that range, this issue has come up a couple of times, and COVID has not helped us. We've brought a concept before the Board of Selectmen about a year or so ago, which they very heartily endorsed 5-0, which was somewhat of I call it a joint venture. Nothing formal has been signed. We've drafted some preliminary documents. We've had some exchanges with town council about those in the past. And what it really is how to get Charles Way to actually become a public way, accepted by the town, and that would allow my client to be able to present really the equivalent of an A&R subdivision plan, because all of these lots will then meet all of the requirements of your bylaws. So he's not looking for any special permits or, dimensional relief variances, et cetera. He's just waiting to get approval and for him to be able to use the public way as frontage. For him to invest substantial amounts of money in pursuing this, doesn't make sense until we have some assurances that the town will in fact accept Charles Way as a public way. The town engineer has identified that the road is failing. It's been failing for a number of years. The town has treated it like a public way. Because when you drive up it, it looks like any other normal street in Chelmsford. The town has installed the sewers for serving those homes. There's some kind of crazy easement that was purportedly, served as the legal predicate to allow that to occur. Do I think it's enforceable? No. But the work got done, and that's where we are. So the town has maintained it by plowing it for snow. It has tried to manage its stormwater. It has done all sorts of things that any other road would otherwise get. But unfortunately, the town's not allowing my client to treat it like a public road and use it for frontage. So I'm saying you can't have it both ways, town. So let's solve the problem. I want to work with, my client and I want to work with the board and the Board of Selectmen and the town engineer to outline a concept of how to get this done. The road needs to be re-engineered for stormwater management according to the town engineer. That is going to involve a lot of money. There have to be as-built plans, road plans, with monuments, et cetera. So my client had offered if he can get conditional approval ultimately of what I'll call an 8-lot subdivision, the 2 A&Rs now and these other 6 lots that are shown on the plan before you, he will commit to contributing some funds towards getting that work done because it's a benefit to him. Now, he's not going to pay for the entirety, nor should he. There are 7 other homeowners there that technically should be paying because they have non-conforming homes. How those properties have sold over the years, from a title perspective, I don't understand it, quite frankly. I don't understand how you can ignore that there is no legal frontage. But that being made, I'm not looking here to create problems. I'm coming here to solve the problem. And I think the way to do that is kind of as follows. And I don't want to take a lot of your time because it's just really kind of a preliminary discussion. But I'd like to get your authority to have, to work with a member of the board as a liaison so that we can keep the process moving forward and keep the board informed of what the steps are being implemented and how it's going to get done and the timing. Also to negotiate a memorandum of understanding with both this board and the Board of Selectmen about what are those steps that the town in good faith will undertake to complete the work, and what are the steps my client is going to be required to complete, to take advantage of the road. So I had outlined this back, I think in early March of 2020, and again maybe in May of 2020, and even more recently with a letter to your board through Evan on November 19th. I don't know if you have a copy of that, but it was submitted when we filed the A&R.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question with Ivy?
Yes, Mike?
Can I ask Evan, we saw this project, right? Did we make a decision as a board on this project at all? Well, I didn't want to interrupt you how far you got.
Attorney Hausler did appear before you conceptually,
Okay.
and that was during the time frame that he mentioned prior to the attorney and his client
Yeah.
engaging with the select board and town officials.
So we never
You're
made
absolutely
any,
right.
we
No,
never
no,
made any
no.
recommendations or?
No.
Okay, great, thank you. I was just trying, looks very familiar, so that's
Good.
why I was just
I'm
asking.
glad to hear that, Mike.
A few of the members here I know have seen it. and-
Right, and again, I know you have a very busy agenda with a lot of people, so I just want to cut through it
Yep.
in less than a couple of minutes, and then I'll leave you
problem.
alone. I saw that there are several key issues that have to get resolved. The first is, before my client undertakes and signs any kind of a memo of understanding, we want to get into an agreement that the town is going to confirm that Charles Way is going to be accepted as a public road. And to get to that point, I'm willing to work with town council, finding a creative way of getting to that point. The town normally doesn't accept a road until all the work associated with the road has been completed, gone through a winter, and otherwise met all the usual town of Chelmsford engineering requirements. I think we're going to need a little flexibility with that approach under these circumstances. So I'm just asking the board, in essence, to be considering a lot of this as waivers from its normal procedures. But the first is to get Charles Way accepted and finding a way to do that. Then after the town identified how to acquire ownership, we needed to do so it can exercise the control and ownership of the street. When that has happened, or while that is happening, we would be asking the town highway department or the DPW to create a very detailed budget of what it's going to cost to get all this stuff done, and the time frame and who's going to likely have to do it, whether it's private or public. But let's get the costs associated with the work so we can come to some type of an idea of what it is. And then, using those numbers, we get into a formal agreement with my clients as owners of their property and the town, in which my client would then deposit into an escrow some amount of money to reimburse the town for some of this work that's being done. I don't want my client's funds to just be escrowed and never used and then tied up. I want to make sure that there's an agreement in place and that there are actual deadlines to be met to get the thing accomplished. I mean, for 45 years, the town hasn't done it. It's time we finish get rid of the problem. So I'm asking the board, in context with the two A&R lots, that's the easy part. I can get you a separate one-sheet plan that says, please endorse these. But the bigger concept is trying to get the other 6 lots endorsed. What I'm going to ask you to do is to determine how you could conditionally approve this as a subdivision, and what requirements can you waive so that my client doesn't have to do things like drainage right now because it doesn't make sense to do so. Why do drainage if it's going to be recomputed by the town engineer and reworked and re-engineered? Or what other normal steps you have in your subdivision process to develop a list of what can be waived, and basically get my client a conditional approval of a definitive subdivision plan, with the major condition being Charles Way gets accepted as a public road, which will have its own agreement. That's the concept I'm proposing. If anybody has better ideas, I am all ears. But 40 years, I haven't heard one, so we've been trying.
I do remember this as well, and I think if you work with the town council and town engineer to put something together, but let me bring it around. Does anybody here have any questions on that? Paul, anything? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to get a weigh-in from town engineering and everything else.
Yeah.
about
Right.
How to get this done.
Those homes that have been there have been paying taxes, they've been, You know.
I understand, we still have to get a
of
weigh-in.
course, of
from
course. That's the first thing I said, so. And also town council. Have you looked at this, or?
I did look at this, what was
A year
last
ago.
March, pre-COVID.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's
It's
when it
been
was.
quite a while, but I do agree with Attorney Hausler's portrayal of what happened before the select board. And I was actually kind of wondering what happened to this, but obviously COVID has derailed a lot of things. So glad to see
Okay,
that we're
so
moving
it's-
forward.
Something workable and,
Yes.
all right. Deidre, do you have anything?
I guess it all sounds reasonable and sensible to me. The only question I have is, I don't quite understand why you need a waiver for things like the drainage at this time. I just don't understand the logistics of that.
The reason is, I want to make sure that we dot every I and cross every T ahead of time so that we have a definitive approval that we meet all the requirements. I believe, and I could be wrong, and I'm usually am, I think, according to my wife, that to get definitive approval of a subdivision, we have to submit drainage plans. But there's no sense us doing that right now if the street's going to get re-engineered. It could be redesigned. And
Right.
so that's why I'm asking that we not be required to follow that technical
It's like a moving
requirement.
target.
We have no problem ultimately doing it,
Right.
but it doesn't make sense to do it now.
Okay.
And this is unique, I think, Doctor, because it otherwise meets 90% of your criteria. And the other thing, so what I really want to get is somebody to be willing to be the liaison so I can coordinate that with Evan and town council to keep this board informed, so I'm not coming before you every month, and that you can have it as an item and an agenda, and work with us to accomplish that goal. We want to be transparent, and we're willing to work with the town in any way we can.
We have a volunteer who raised his hand, Mike.
I did, what?
welcome.
I think I speak the language.
I would welcome the opportunity, Mike, and I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any objections to what I'm proposing as generically?
No,
or-
I would recommend separating the two lots from
Yeah.
the A&R and get that off the page. Then we're just dealing with the other 6.
That's kind of where I thought, but I wanted to bring it before you because I thought you might want to attack it as an entirety. But again, I want the board to tell me what it's comfortable with, and then we can work and get through the mechanics.
I'm assuming there's no wetlands on this property?
I'm pretty sure that that's correct. I'm pretty sure it's pretty dry.
This is well up there.
Who in the town accepts a road as a public road?
Town meeting.
Town meeting, okay.
It has to be a warrant article, if I'm stepping on toes here, council.
Although it's generally pro forma. I mean, basically, the town engineer does the legwork, and presents it.
All the boards.
I've never seen town meeting reject a proposed street acceptance during my time as town council, but anything can happen, I guess.
Yeah, I'm finding that to be true. Anything can happen. So again, if there's any concern about waiving some of these conditions, I'd rather know that ahead of time. But I'd rather work with Evan directly and now Mike to figure out what it is we do need to give to the board to kind of get a conditional definitive approval, with the primary outstanding condition being Charles Way being accepted as a public way.
And then would you, in terms of a timeline, would we be doing this, anticipating trying to do this at Springtown meeting or at a special town meeting?
Would I love it to be that soon? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to be there? I hope my client doesn't interrupt me via Zoom, but he would like it to be done next week, and I don't blame him. Realistically, I don't see how we could do that. And the other issue that we do need to discuss, and I am confused as to whether sewer is available to these proposed homes or not, because I don't know what the town engineer and the sewer commission did when they were constructing the road. They may have put in stubs, because these were potentially buildable lots. I don't know the answer to that, so I don't know if they're part of the count or not, or where it stands. So that's one of the other issues that I would be addressing in this conversation.
The rest of the homes have sewer, though.
I believe Charles Way, all the homes are tied in, I believe. I'm not aware that they're not. And I'm not looking to trespass or do anything that's harmful to any other abutter there. Because otherwise, this would be it really would be A&R lots. There wouldn't be even really a public hearing on it.
What's the status of this old town way? I gather that's been abandoned and it's no longer a town road?
Yeah, I mean, I've abutted it for 21 years, and all it is a dog walking path and bike riding for some kids.
Yeah, we got one of those up on High Street, too.
So it's never been, I don't believe it can be built out based on either some wetlands that are up towards Pennsylvania as you go up that road,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. So you have a representative from the board, Mike. You can work with Mike and town council and go from there. I think everybody else is on board. I mean,
Well, I mean, let me just ask what the sense of the board is. My sense is that we're perfectly fine waiving things or delaying things where those things will ultimately get resolved by the acceptance of Charles Way. So that what we're playing with is the timing here. For example, the drainage, you're absolutely correct. Pointless to talk about drainage until they figure out what they're gonna do on the road.
That's right.
So, but if that's the sense of the board, then I'll go at it with that attitude and that approach.
yeah, I think everybody's
Okay.
on board with that.
And one of the benefits, so I can, because Mike brought up the point that was familiar to him, the one difference about the land now is my client has actually acquired another parcel that was originally part of 160 or 170 North Road. there was a odd-shaped parcel, and he has since acquired that, which means he has even more frontage, which eliminated the need to put in a cul-de-sac coming off the side of Charles Way. So now all the frontage comes off Charles. So it's actually a much better plan.
Good.
Okay?
Thank you.
So would we need a vote here to grant A&R on lots 1 and 2?
I don't think I'm not asking for that tonight.
Okay.
I just want to get as a discussion point, but I do believe we have to give you a separate plan just showing those 2 lots.
Yep.
And then I think it will come back before you, it'll be kind of routine.
That works for us.
So
Okay.
vote to continue?
Yes, please.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to
Give me a
working with
holler, you know where to find me.
you. Yes, I do, Mike.
Yeah.
That bracelet, that ankle bracelet works, you know?
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
UPS?
Yeah, we'll go back to UPS. Are you there? What was his name?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
And see you.
Okay,
Answer you.
perfect. Okay. I'm going to quickly share my screen here. Okay. Okay. Due to an unforeseen condition, UPS will need to construct a small retaining wall around existing telecom equipment adjacent to the shoulder of Brick Kiln Road. The wall will be approximately 8 feet tall at its highest point. The equipment is 20 feet off of the edge of the pavement, and the wall itself will be no closer than 12 feet from the edge of the pavement. We had submitted an enclosed letter and engineered drawings and revised landscaping sketch to the town and the city engineer for review, and Evan had recommended we put this on the agenda as a talking point here. So I'm just sharing the sketch in question. The blue angular line is the location of the retaining wall, and you can see Brick Kiln Road off to the side here on the right-hand side of the drawing. And then we also submitted engineered drawings for the retaining wall itself, relatively non-invasive, will not impact the landscaping arrangement in any significant manner, and just wanted to formalize it for the board.
All right, I'm just going to read a letter from the sewer department, not sewer, Public Works. Dear members, this office has reviewed the partial site plan SK-02 showing the new 8-foot wall along Brick Kiln Road. This office has the following comments. Structural approval of the wall must be given by the Chelmsford Building Department. 2, the easement line and property line must be staked in the field near the wall. The wall should be outside these lines on the applicant's private property. If you have any questions, please contact this office, Christina Papadopoulos. That is it for letters. Actually, here is, well, this is just what he just spoke of, his narrative. Basically, due to an unforeseen condition, they will need to construct a small retaining wall around the existing telecom equipment adjacent to the shoulder of the Brick Kiln Road. The wall is approximately 8 foot tall at the highest point. Equipment is 20 foot off the edge of the pavement, and the wall will be no closer than 12 feet from the edge of the pavement. Enclosed with this letter are the engineered drawings and revised landscape indicating the details and location. If anyone needs to look at those, I have a copy of them. Deidre, you want to see them?
Yeah, I would. Thank you.
I'll bring it around. Does anybody have any questions? Paul?
I don't think I do.
Henry?
I'm fine with it.
The only question I have is what's in between the roadway and this wall? Is there a fence that's still there? I don't know if you can hear me.
You hear us?
There will be just a landscaping buffer there.
What for a landscaping buffer?
Just a tree and bush arrangement, the same thing that was on the original landscaping plan, no modifications to that.
I'm just thinking if a car goes off the road, now it's going off a wall that we didn't have originally in the plan. It was just landscaping and then into a parking lot. So,
The wall isn't there, it's going into equipment.
Equipment.
but it's at grade. It was coming down. So now, so it's fun. I mean, if you guys don't have a concern with it.
Do you have anything, Henry?
Well, I mean, probably much like my Uncle Charlie's property there on the nursery. You guys were just there
Yeah,
the other day,
yeah.
but he's talking 12 feet off the line. That's 6 feet off the line.
Yeah.
I don't know if the fire department's looked at it and has a comment for putting a guardrail on top of it if it's going as an 8-foot drop. But I mean, I'm pretty sure there is requirements for something. This wall is going 8 feet down off and into the equipment.
It's encompassing the grading behind it, so it's nestling the equipment in rather.
So if you drove across the top, would you drop down? Or are you gonna have some?
No, you'd run into the equipment and you careen up the side of it if you were to drive into it.
Okay.
Plus, I mean,
You're not diving off into anything.
yeah.
It's really to frame in the grading and everything that surrounds it.
You'd have to have a
Hi,
building permit.
Mike. Yeah, listen, thank you.
Mike? Can someone mute him? All right, so he would have to get a building permit anyway, so.
He's gotta get a
Yeah, no
building
problem.
permit.
Look at it.
I just
so-
wanted, I didn't know.
Anybody have anything?
Well, if he gets through the building permit process, I think that'll take care of any requirements for fencing or guardrails or whatever we would have to have.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
What's the normal distance from the side of the road to, like, what's the normal setback that's required? I don't know.
Usually
I mean, it's 12 feet,
if there's a
just
sidewalk,
different-
it's 4 feet, but it's usually
Oh,
private
yes.
property right up to the road.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so no questions.
Do we have to open this to the public? We don't, I don't think so.
What was the unforeseen development?
This is a minor mod.
Yeah, for special.
What was
so-
the unforeseen development?
Yeah, what caused the?
Is he there still, John?
Equipment.
I just don't think from a utility survey perspective we captured the equipment when the full topo and utility survey was performed. I think that was missed. Yeah, so essentially the unforeseen element was the equipment itself as it related to the larger site improvements project that surrounds it.
I see.
Makes sense.
All right, do we need,
Is this being retained because the area is being filled in and raised? Or is this simply a wall to protect the equipment from the trucks in the parking lot?
No, it's because the surrounding area is being graded and I think what you're referencing a soils impact there. So the equipment needed to retain its elevation and not be raised, along with the berm and everything around that area.
So everything around it is being raised up in the leveling process, whereas the equipment itself cannot be moved.
Correct.
Okay.
I understand.
That makes sense.
sorry, Nancy, I forgot you. I didn't see you there.
Yeah, but I wasn't going to let you forget me.
I know you would not. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Erica, would you have anything? Are you there?
I don't. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got everybody. Can we get a motion?
Well, what does this require of us? Simply a granting of the special permit, or does
Yeah,
this have to be
It's
open?
the minor modification.
It's a minor mod, so,
Yep.
okay. And I would move to grant the minor mod as presented.
Second,
Second.
by Henry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep.
They should have a letter of continuance in 9 Acton Road file, one page.
Nine Acton Road, Dear Evan and Colleen, on behalf of John Fanaris, we request one more continuance on the planning board, hearing scheduled for 12/8/21 for 13 Acton, aka 9 Acton Road, without testimony. We expect to be ready to go for the board's next meeting on January 12th, 2022. If you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you. Attorney Iliopoulos. A motion to,
Well, I want to make sure that this doesn't put us in any time limit crunches.
Nope, still good.
We're fine?
yeah, we,
Got plenty? Okay, in that case, I move that we continue the public, or we continue the hearing. I guess it is a public hearing, isn't it? On the 9 Acton?
Second.
To January 12th.
Yeah, Jan 12th, yep.
all in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All set. New public hearing. Is it 7? Yes, it is. UMass West Campus. The Town of Chelmsford's Planning Board will be a public hearing on Wednesday, December 8th, 2021 at 7 PM in 204 Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, for purposes of receiving public comment to amend the Town Code, Chapter 195 zoning bylaw by adopting a new overlay district known as UMass West Multi-Family Housing Overlay District, and to amend the Chelmsford zoning map to rezone the real property located at 255 Princeton Street, map 20, block 74-lot 1, consisting of 34 acres, to the UMass West Multi-Family Housing Overlay District, as shown on the UMass West Multi-Family Housing Overlay District map, dated 10/10/2021. And who is here to present?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from the law firm of Farrell and Robbins. If you could just give us 1 second, we're just
Sure.
setting up technology and making sure we have availability to share the screen, and then we'll just get going.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Take a couple of minutes till they get ready.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Ready? It's quick.
My favorite project.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I think he doesn't have room to turn around in there.
What time is that? Morning or night? Good evening. My name is Mark Bransky. I'm with Trammell Crow Residential. Thank you for your time this afternoon, or evening, I should say. Members of the planning board, members of the public. We are putting our presentation on the screen. I'll start with a kind of a brief introduction. The presentation itself may look rather familiar. It's in line with some of the presentations that we've done in the past to both the select and planning boards as well as to broadly the public. I will also just take a moment to introduce the team. You've met our counsel, Ms. Robbins, as well. We have Mason Brunick from Trammell Crow Residential. We have Dave Formato from On-Site Engineering, who is our wastewater treatment plant consultant. We have Nick Delacava from Allen & Major to speak if there are questions on stormwater. And then remotely, we have our traffic consultant, MDM Traffic Consultants, and Sean Sanger from Copley Wolf Design Group to speak on landscaping. Just to kind of familiarize people with what we believe we've been asked to speak to here, we'll talk a bit about the site plan and be available for questions. We'll then ask our counsel to present on the zoning overlay and, sorry, I can't see the exact language, benefits to town, sorry. And then we'll be available to speak about the benefits to the town. First slide, please. Second. Site, I think everyone knows it at this stage of the game. So I think we can move on from this side. The historic buildings, or I shouldn't say historic, the buildings that have been there, have traditionally been on the site have already been demolished, as is indicated in this site plan. And just for a little bit of context, what we have here is that we have the current proposed site plan, which has been based on
considerable iterations and feedback from neighbors. Just out of curiosity, I went and looked, and I noted that we've had about 25 meetings with various town entities in this calendar year, and we've had over 30 meetings with abutters, either in large groups or frankly in groups of one or two on. So we've had quite a bit of outreach and quite a bit of input that has helped us fashion the site. The reason I give you the site plan for context is just to show that generally speaking, all the buildings that have previously been on the site are dimensionally closer to the lot lines than our proposed structures, which I think is worthwhile for noting. And just a step back, if you'd like, I can kind of explain the units and the mixes and all that, if that isn't something that our people are familiar with, but I'm going on the presumption that everyone isn't in fact familiar with the proposed site plan.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm good.
We're good.
I've seen it.
Okay. Well, then I will hand over to Attorney Rollins.
Thank you again, members of the board. I'm glad I printed these out because I also can't read that writing from that far away. I think this slide is about the MBTA communities, and then it should say also zoning procedure. Our proposal tonight is to put an overlay in place on the property. The underlying zoning will remain the same. The overlay district would actually allow for the development to be done as you see on the site plan. So it's really the overlay to back into the site plan. It would also allow for SCG development and choice to build one nonprofit building within the development, which would be for 55 and over only. I note on the slide that you could not do that under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, as these units would have to be interdispersed throughout the development, and they also would not be able to be age restricted. The development may also be able to satisfy the town's needs under the Economic Development Legislation of 2020, which deems Chelmsford an MBTA community. And just so the board's clear, Chelmsford's an MBTA community based on their designation by an other served community. It doesn't mean that you have an MBTA station in your community. It doesn't even mean that you have direct access to an MBTA site in your community. It just means that you're an other served community that may use an MBTA site. Many other communities in this area are also considered other served communities, just like Westford. MBTA communities are required to have higher density by right zoning districts. What do I mean by that? If you're a designated community, you have to have a zoning district that allows for 15 units per acre by right. Communities that fail to fulfill this will not be eligible for various state funding, including housing choice funds, local capital project funds, and mass work funds. That's the exclusive list of funds that they list in the legislation. I'm not just reading a couple. Those are the three that they actually point out that municipalities would not have access to if they don't satisfy the MBTA communities. This overlay is drafted with the specific intention and purpose of satisfying this legislation, helping to town of Chelmsford to check that box. I think what I'd like to take a couple minutes to do, I know everybody's had a chance to look at the overlay in their packet, but if we want to just run through it quickly, page by page, I'll just hit the top topics and just say generally what it's about, and then if the board or the community has any questions about specific sections, I can answer questions. Town council is also here to answer questions, so I won't belabor, I won't read every word, but I'll just run through it quickly, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the general purpose of intent, I just kind of put it out there. It's to satisfy the requirements of Chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020. The establishment applicability, there's a map that goes along with this, but it would be for this zoning district, this zoning area only. It is specific to this development and this piece of property only, and not for other purposes in any other part of town. The next section, the establishment and applicability, actually lists the sections in the town of Chelmsford zoning bylaws that we are going to be subject to. Everything else in this overlay is crafted as part of this overlay, section by section, and I'll go through them quickly. There's two separate definitions in the zoning district that are different than your regular zoning districts. One is for multifamily dwelling, which is many of the other, the for-profit buildings on the site plan that we're not showing right now. And then the age-restricted multifamily dwelling, which is going to be that one building that's restricted to residents 55 and over. There's two separate sections about allowed uses. One is by right, and one is by right with site plan review. And then under that, there's also two sections. One is for the market rate units, and the second is for the affordable units. You'll see these designations throughout this bylaw, and that's why they're set up right at the beginning. We then get into the design standards. Again, there's two separate design standards. One is for the market rate lots, which is a minimum of 10 acres and has some applicability as to frontage. And then the second one is for the age-restricted lot. It's a little smaller lot, there's a little less frontage, so that's set forth specifically in Section 2 under design standards. On page 3, we get into landscape buffers. And when I talk about landscape buffers, I'm talking to existing roadways. Then we're talking to design standards for connected buildings. This would be any buildings where we're going to have any connected walkways, any connected buildings. Initially, this project had a building where we were trying to connect it via walkway and maybe an elevator. That's now been eliminated. But should we get into site plan review and have that design come back, this would allow for that flexibility. The next section is to talk about the size of the units. They're set forth there. The required density under the statute is 15 dwellings per acre. And the second part of that section is about how you count what site area is. This project obviously meets both of those requirements. The next section goes into building and parking coverage. I won't get into that because it's very self-explanatory. Top of page 4 is to building and structure setbacks, which basically says the building and structure has to be 30 feet from any property line, that's a public or private street, and then 20 feet from any other property boundary area. Then there's a separate section for parking setbacks within the development themselves. The next section is to building height, which under this bylaw would be 56 feet or 4 stories high. Number 10 is actually consistent with the town of Chelmsford policy regarding utilities, is that they should be underground unless otherwise approved by the planning board. The next section is about recreational and open space. Again, there's 2 sections here, one that relates to the market rate lot and one that relates to the affordable lot. On the market rate portion of the lot, 50% of the open space, 50% of the lot area will be restricted as open space. And then 35% of the lot area would be restricted to open space on the age-restricted multifamily units. The next section is related to parking. Within the market rate units, right now on the site plan, we're showing 1.6 parking spaces per unit. And on the age-restricted multifamily dwelling units, we're showing 0.9 parking spaces per unit. The rest of that section actually talks about drainage within the parking surface areas and the size of the parking space units themselves. The next section, 13, actually talks to a perimeter buffer, parking buffer, and landscape around structures. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And number 14 is about general architectural design standards, and also the lighting plan, which will be in conformance with the town of Chelmsford's light bylaw. On the next page at the top, number 15 talks about general site plan review standards. Basically, every section that we've stated at the top is about what's in an application for a site plan review. Then when you get into number 2, these are the things that will be reviewed as part of the site plan review, and I think that these are actually just important to put out there. The natural environment would be reviewed by the planning board, which is groundwater, surface water, groundwater level, stream flows, erosion and siltation, vegetation removal, and wildlife habitats. The second section is public services, which is traffic, safety and congestion, need for water system improvements, and need for public sewerage. And the third one is visual environment, which is visibility of building and parking and visual consistencies with existing development in the area. I think I just want to pause here and let everybody know that what's being proposed would require site plan review approval from the planning board. So all of those would be applicable to this project. What would happen procedurally is if this planning board votes to support this overlay, and then it goes to the Board of Selectmen to go to town meeting, it would then be voted on by the town representatives, and if the town representatives approve it, it would go to the Attorney General's office for approval, and then once it returns back to the town of Chelmsford, approved by the Attorney General, Trammell would then still have to come back with SCG in choice and apply to the planning board for site plan review. So we still would have a review process for this board. All traffic studies would be reviewed, all groundwater studies would be reviewed, all stormwater would be reviewed, so it'd be very typical to your normal site plan review. Likewise, I met with Conservation last night, and I just want to remind everybody that all conservation bylaws would be enforceable on this site. We would be filing for a notice of intent for all work on the site as well. I just wanted to pause there just to go through the procedure because I think it was important. The rest of this section, the validity of the decision, I think that's self-explanatory. The waivers section, I know that the town of Chelmsford is used to seeing all the language here about special permits, but we're actually calling them waivers here because everything under this bylaw is as of right. But the board does still have some allowance to waive some sections under this bylaw. But as you can see on the next page, we've put in standards similar to your special permit standards, how the board could allow for waivers from even items within this bylaw. The last section about severability, again, is pretty self-explanatory, so I won't dig into that. And that's generally the bylaw, the overlay bylaw. I will state as well, and we'll talk about it briefly once I sit down, that there's another document that's being drafted by the town, and that's the development agreement. That's really all the agreements that the developer is making and granting to the town that's outside of this overlay. Commitments that the developers are making prior to going to town meeting. And we'll go through those briefly right now, but I just want to make it clear that the development agreement is being negotiated through the Board of Selectmen with input from the town boards and department. And then the overlay, the proper procedure is happening tonight, where we're opening the public hearing. We'll look at the overlay, the planning board will give their feedback, and we'll hear the feedback from the abutters. And this overlay could be modified some in response to some of those questions and concerns. I'm happy to answer any questions on the overlay, but I would like to allow Mark to talk briefly about what the benefits of this project are to the town of Chelmsford under the development agreement, briefly.
Thank you, and it's worth commenting, I apologize for omitting, that David Hedison with Choice SCG is remote and is also, a member of the team, so, and there may be others, it's hard to tell who's in attendance. Can we go to the slide, please? Actually, do you have no, the slides, because I can't see it.
Yes.
It's up there now, right?
Yeah, it is, it just,
Yeah.
Back to this.
Hard to read.
it's not easy to read, I apologize. Well, I tried. Okay.
There you go.
So, yeah. So, as Council Robbins has mentioned, the development agreement has been a document that we've been working with the town on for, since, I believe, late August, maybe mid-August. There's been various iterations and considerable feedback from, thanks, the town administration and various town boards, some of which we've had more recent outreach with, to make sure that we're addressing questions or concerns that came up in the course of various meetings. So notwithstanding the benefits and the compliance with the Housing Communities Law, which Councilor Robbins has referred to, this project also addresses a number of other issues for the town, one of which is it does create a path to safe harbor by creating a projected inventory that is over 10%, which would then allow the town to be in control of any other future developments that would be proposed via a 40B. The sites, and right now that how those units are allocated, we refer to 60 units. It's 54 in Choice SCG, and it's 6 on our property. So when Attorney Robbins referred to the market rate, it is broadly, our development is broadly market rate, but it does have affordable component to it. It's also worth noting that the Choice SCG site will be benefited considerably by improvements that we as a developer will be incurring on our behalf. Perhaps most important of those is the development of the private sewer system. With the moratorium in place and probably in place for quite some time, it would be very difficult for any developer of 54 units of housing, be it market rate, affordable, or anything in between, to create that housing, right? Notwithstanding the availability of land and other factors, building a private sewer for that project is still a costly venture. So that is a quite meaningful benefit that the town via Choice SCG will be receiving. In the course of our negotiations or conversations with the town, we've also agreed to provide $360,000 of funding towards the town's affordable housing PILO, payment in lieu of fund. Based on feedback from Dr. Lang in concert with our fiscal and school child impact consultant, we'll be providing $60,000 to fund studies and reports to benefit the school in their forthcoming assessment of their capability of assuming students. It is worthwhile to note that the as-of-right were this to be solely an as-of-right project, it is generally agreed upon based on the feedback from the school, Dr. Lang, as well as our consultant, that would create at least 30-something students. And needless to say, as of right, there would be no economic benefits that would be translated against that, except for tax payments. Our project creates considerably more gross tax revenue, and in the assumptions we've gone through with the feedback from Dr. Lang, it still leaves a considerable sum of money net to the town, in addition to paying for potential additional teachers and other factors. Again, net benefits, tax benefits to the town, 1.27, just under 1.3 million in gross benefits, and then depending on what the student, how many students are in fact ending up on the property, and that range, to refresh your memory, is 35 to 49 students based on assessments for projects in the town, as well as based on the database that our consultant has looked at for projects in eastern Massachusetts. A net benefit of, $668,700, roughly $50,000 net. So addressing school, fire, life safety, and all other police and all other projected costs. The site and the neighborhood will benefit from the rapid flash pedestrian crossing signal, and we are committing to two probably solar-powered radar boards with locations to be worked out with the state, because Princeton is, as we know, a state thoroughfare. We do know that while there have been some questions about traffic, that these particular items do have traffic calming benefits that will be valuable to everyone. We're providing around $54,000 towards the town's Traffic Pedestrian Safety Improvements Fund, which I believe is a derivative of $100 per parking space right now, which is in your bylaws. We'll be providing $250,000 towards a traffic improvement project, 25% design. I don't know if we specified 25% design, but for work that the town is moving forward with at the intersection of Princeton and Richardson Streets. Based on feedback and requests from town administration, we'll be providing $30,000 towards a historic monument or plaque on the property to acknowledge the long history of this site and what's happened on it. Do you have a question? Or
No.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Further, in recognition of traffic concerns, we will be providing signage, which I think still needs to be figured out what precisely that is, to benefit the neighbors and to discourage, if not prevent, not just our residents, but frankly anybody driving on Princeton from trying to take shortcuts or going down any of the private roads. And then lastly, we will work with the town as a partner in pursuing future state grants, MassWorks type funding for benefit of that general area.
So we do have all of our consultants here, but instead of giving a full presentation on each of the topics, I think the best way to do it would be to hear planning board comments and be responsive to those, and also abutter comments that the board would like us to respond to. So at this point, I think we'll end there, and then we can be responsive to any comments or questions that the board or the public may have.
That'd be great. Thank you very much for the presentation. Deidre, would you like to go?
Sure. I have a couple things. Melissa, I think this is for you. Can you just repeat the 3 types of grants? I had never heard that so clearly delineated.
Sure, it's the Housing Choice Funds, the Local Capital Project Funds, and MassWork Funds.
Okay. And Evan, are those, any of those things that we've applied for in the past?
Oh, sure,
and
yeah.
gotten the MassWorks, I think?
We've
just got a
received,
Mass Works grant, right?
we've received the first year of eligibility, we applied for and received the Housing Choice Grant, $250,000 to build sidewalks from 104 Turnpike down to the credit union. MassWorks, we just received $680,000 for assisting the Groton Road duplex water main upgrade, working on behalf of, in partnership with the Water District. In years past, 270, I think it was 370 for Cushing Place streetscape upgrades. And we were unsuccessful on a third attempt. So yeah, those are two significant grant sources, particularly the MassWorks that the
And
town
am I
would.
correct in understanding that if we didn't become MBTA town, we would no longer be eligible to apply for
As-
those
Yeah, as
grants?
written, that appears to be the intent, yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then I had a question about the net benefit. You said you had incorporated into that the costs associated with police, fire, and schools. So what was the schools component of that cost, and how did you derive that?
We're going to find that information so that we're fairly precise in our response. It is iterated in the fiscal report, and so I would say that was, the ultimate derivation was based on feedback from our consultant, but also in conversation with Dr. Lang about what he projected the needs of the school to be based on the likely student. Thank you. I don't know if this is as detailed as you would like it to be. Gross benefit, tax benefits of $1.27 million. In addition, and we didn't mention this, property taxes per annum of over $1 million, just under 1.1, which we didn't include in this calculation. Excise taxes of about $170,000, which is not, those were not included because they're ongoing, but, and then, I'm sorry, those are included. Strike that, sorry. I didn't mention the one-time fees. I'll mention that in a second. Total projected community costs, from feedback with the police department, it was $90,000 per year. From the fire department, $115,000 per year. Council on Aging, just under $10,000 per year. Other departments, just under $40,000 per year. And school child costs ranging from $270,000 to $350,000. And you know, we can get you the specific breakout of that number. I know there's a detail on it, I don't have it here. It is worth mentioning, because this is not something that we've referenced as an ongoing benefit, because it isn't ongoing, but there are one-time benefits, a building permit fee of $1.1 million, and then water connection fees. I realize that the North Chelmsford Water District is a distinct entity, but the water connection fees are about $1.7 million.
So an additional almost 3
Yeah.
million in like one-time permit type fees? Okay, so I guess my last point is that I was surprised watching the school committee meeting last night and hearing it again today, that the mitigation for the school number is quite low, in my opinion. But with that in mind, I have expressed in the past that I would like to see a higher number for the affordable housing. And so I don't know if an extra 6 units would be appropriate, but maybe, like, that would be another extra %, but maybe if so little of the mitigation money is going to be going towards the school, I personally would like to see a somewhat larger amount going towards the affordable housing portion. And so maybe
the PILO payment fund?
either the PILO or maybe reducing the mean income of the units in your 6 units, maybe from 80 down to 60, or maybe some combination of those two features.
I can't respond to that right now. I'd have to,
Yeah.
look at the numbers, but we can certainly take a look at that.
I was actually expecting the schools to be looking for something more in the neighborhood of $300,000 or $400,000. I'm shocked that they're.
Well, I mean, it's worth noting that, again, the schools, Dr. Lang's feedback is that we believe that about $270,000 to $350,000 per annum of the gross taxes will go to benefit the school. So that actually
Right,
does tie
right.
back into your number.
Right. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick clarification. So are we now an MBTA community?
You're an other served community. We're specifically listed in the legislation as an other served community.
Right, because we're already getting those grants, so we would have to be, right?
Well, these are new stipulations. for
Yes,
those grants.
correct.
We knew as-
So moving forward, we wouldn't be eligible for those grants
Unless-
unless we're in compliance with the housing
Which
choice
this will
legislation.
put us in, okay. Excellent. Paul?
I have no questions.
Henry?
I'm not really happy with the number of parking, but we have a public meeting here. I really want to get the public
Yeah.
input
Yep.
going before I tie it up too long.
Excellent. Mike?
No, I really don't have any questions. Deirdre asked already a couple of questions that I had, especially one, we did talk in some of the working sessions about increasing the affordable housing. So that's something we should still be talking about a little bit. That was it.
Mike?
I don't know, I'm fine at this point. I'd like to hear the public.
Okay, Nancy, before we go to public.
Yeah, I have no other questions, but I would like to hear from the public.
Excellent. Everybody would love to hear from
Erica?
you. Erica? You there, Erica?
I am here, but I am all set, thank you.
Okay, anyone from the public that would like to?
Mr. Chairman, before we go to the public, I just did want to bring up one aspect of the proposed zoning bylaw that I think we need to address.
Yes.
And that is appeals of any decision by the planning board under site plan approval. So the way that there's no statute with regard to site plan approval in Massachusetts. It's purely something that's been developed by the towns over the years. If there's an appeal taken of site plan approval and there's no provision in the zoning bylaw that directs where that appeal goes, essentially, nobody's allowed to appeal until a building permit is issued by the building department for the development. There's no direct appeal of the site plan approval. I think it's in everybody's best interest that there be a provision that allows for a direct appeal of the site plan approval. There are lots of communities throughout the state that have provisions like that in their zoning bylaws that have been recognized by the courts as appropriate. So essentially, we would just create a provision that allows for an appeal directly to the courts pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 48-17. So I can give you that language for the next
That's why
time.
you get the big bucks. That sounds great. Everyone's all set with that. Anyone from the public, please make your way up and state your name and address, please.
a lot of sense.
Also, just to say the number again, if someone did want to call in, it is 929-205-6099. Yes, sir?
Okay, my name is Claude Royal. I live at 22 Augusta Way in Meadowwood. And I did submit a letter to the board voicing my disapproval for this project. Tonight, I'd like to read another letter and would want to make that an amendment to the original letter, if I may.
Yes.
Okay, so in the original letter, I outlined my concerns of Tamacro's proposed mega project on the vacant UMass property on Princeton Street. I don't think the town needs this mega project being placed in the middle of single-family homes and possible effects it could have on Meadowwood, Windermere, and surrounding residents in this area in the future. Meadowwood is sitting on 24 acres of land with 71 single-story homes. At 2 people per unit equals 142 people. 12-plus units have only 1 person, so it brings the number down to around 130 people living on 24 acres. Windermere sits on 10 or 11 acres of land. The developer at the time was able to place the homes closer together, the same design of home. But they were able to put them a little closer together, so they were able to get more lots per acre in the Windermere. There are 56 single-family homes in Windermere using the same occupancy analogy. There are 114 people living in Windermere on 10 acres of land. Doing the math and adding both properties together equals 240 people on 34 acres of land with both developments on the sewer. Tamil Crow estimates this project will generate somewhere in the vicinity of $1,288,800 and something dollars to the town in added dollars of revenue. There is no estimate to how much of that money will be used on the services the town will have to provide in added school costs, transportation, just to name one item. Together, Meadowood and Windermere have a total of 240 people occupying 34 acres of land and generate approximately $1,043,200 in taxes. That includes the excise tax. Our community is a 55-plus development and do not use the school system, for which we are being charged for the benefit of the town. We figure we have to pay the taxes for the school. The Tamil Crow development plans to jam 780-plus people on 34 acres of land, which 11.3 acres is wetland, leaving 22.6 acres of buildable land. This high-density living is high-density living in its highest form. These buildings are gigantic and overpower the site. There are no number of trees, 6 feet and 6 feet of fencing that will block the view of the very plain vinyl-clad buildings from view by Meadowood and Windermere residents. I live on Augusta Way, and my back deck faces these buildings, and they'll constantly be in my view. Then there's the problem of sewerage. 800-plus people living on 26.6 acres of land will produce a tremendous amount of waste daily. It should be properly treated. Placing an oversized septic tank on the site, in my view, is not the answer. The amount of sewage generated daily flowing into the small parcel of land, daily you'll get all of this waste. Resolving the potential problems of contaminated groundwater seepage from the Tamil Crow property into the wetlands, into the Meadowood and Windermere developments could cause big problems in the future. Where does this responsibility lay? In other words, I have here a fact sheet explaining groundwater contamination. If you read it, you will understand the problem of how groundwater contamination works. There are also a few pages of pictures showing sewerage facility at the Point in Littleton, Mass. The sewage facility at the Point is not without problems. They have already been cited for groundwater and sewerage contamination. You'll notice in some of these pictures that the area is not very well kept, the sewerage area. There is no money generated to the developer for sewage disposal, and it's not given much attention. The next item I see is traffic. Princeton is a narrow 2-lane road. A car making a left-hand turn off from Princeton Street into the proposed Tamil Crow site will be a problem. The cars may have to stop to allow oncoming traffic to clear the area until it becomes safe for the car to complete the turn. This will hold up through traffic behind the car waiting to make the left-hand turn. With 800-plus people coming and going daily from this site, it will certainly cause traffic problems. The road, for safety reasons, will have to be reconfigured to allow proper flow of traffic. Due to the population growth in the area along Route 40 over a long period of time, a 4-mile stretch of Route 40 had been reconfigured to alleviate the traffic turning congestion in this area. The town did an awesome job correcting these 4 miles of road. The traffic problem on Princeton Street will start immediately once the development is operational. Where does the responsibility for this problem lay? Appropriating land along Princeton Street could be costly. The proposed tax generated from the Crow project would take a long time to show a profit in the green column due to road construction costs, school costs, just to name a few. Chelmsford is a lovely town with great schooling and a great place to bring up a family. Why spoil this part of town with this type of a development? If you were taking a vote on this property for rezoning today, my vote would be no. Thank you for the opportunity of me being able to present this, and I'd like to hand it to the board as a record of my comments.
Yes, please, thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here from the public who would like to get up and speak?
George Zaharoulis, 191 Princeton Street, North Chelmsford. I see two distinct documents here. One is development agreement, which is the selectmen, and your overlay. So my questions, first off, Mr. Chairman, and probably end up at town council. Maybe I'm missing it, but where does it say in here that in order to use this overlay, that there has to be a development agreement? I'm not quite seeing it spelled out. Is it in the overlay that a development agreement has to be in place?
Mr. Chairman, through you, there is no requirement in the zoning bylaw that there has to be a development agreement. I don't think that that's something that could properly be included in the bylaw. There will be, before this goes to town meeting, there will be an executed development agreement. So
Okay.
it's not contingent upon a provision in the bylaw. It will exist before this is placed before town meeting.
Okay. So my questions, and I brought them up when they had the public meeting, parking. Your bylaw calls for, in multifamily districts, one space for one bedroom or studios, 2 spaces for 2 or more bedrooms, 1 space for every 3 guest parking. This project as presented is light on the parking. My question is why has this bylaw gone away from that and gone to a 1.9 instead of spelling out the number of parking spaces? And the question would be why isn't that in there? You have a blank slate here, you have a blank piece of property, and you certainly can, by a special permit, reduce parking. So why not use what exists already in your bylaw? That's my question to the board, whether you want to answer it now or not. That's fine. Under design standards, you have that you want to waive the minimum lot frontage on a public and private way. Was that done because of the 54 units that's going to be on a private way? I mean, this lot does have adequate frontage, it's along Princeton. So my question is, why is that in there? No one addressed the height issue, either the applicant or your members. Under our existing bylaw, height is 35 feet. By special permit, we've allowed higher buildings, taller buildings. So here you've spelled out 56 feet, which definitely goes to the buildings that they want to build. You certainly could put something in there to make it stronger or tougher and harder for them to meet the 56 feet or 54 feet. But no one's addressed that in this overlay. Address the parking. So I kind of find it funny on number 14, number 2, residential buildings shall be constructed with a minimum of 2 stories or a suitable facade suggestive of 2 stories. You got 2 buildings here that are 4 stories. I think that's my questions for the overlay. As far as the development agreement goes, I think there's one glaring thing missing, and that is, the developer has mentioned that he will not use the municipal wastewater system, that they'll have an on-site sewage treatment plant. I think that should be in the development agreement. I know that's not your board, that's selectmen, but it was brought up here. And the reason why I say that is, the way the plan that I saw at the end of the driveway closest to Princeton, there's townhouses. I think it was 10 townhouses or something to that number. I don't want this board to run into a situation where there's a misunderstanding and say, well, we found a little bit of capacity, we'll tie those 10 into the municipal sewer and the rest of the project into the wastewater system, into the sewage treatment system. So I think it's something that's simple, that can be spelled out. I don't think it hurts anything. They've mentioned it, that they're gonna do it. So I think that should be in the development agreement, so not to put this board into a situation somewhere down the road that someone had a misunderstanding regarding it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, George.
Hello, good evening, Board. Joe Pina. I live on 119 Whiteman Street. I've been there 24 years. I bought the property because it's a private, very private backyard, and abuts a pond, and I really just have one neighbor. So I have listened to the contractor's sales pitch now about 3 times, and I just want to say that there was one message in there that was stated that he would only build where the existing structures already have been. And unfortunately, that's not true. So I can go back in this property probably over 100 years. There's never been construction on the Whiteman Street canopy. So that's specifically what I'm talking about. All the previous buildings are all located the other side of Roulette Street, which is the name of the street that goes into the property, all of that. So I don't know if you can see it, but you've probably seen it before, but the corridor here, Whiteman Street, this entire buffer will be eliminated when they put the buildings there. So it's about 130 feet wide. It runs the entire street of Whiteman, and the current plan right now is a 54-unit building. The choice building would be 50 feet from my property line. It gives a 20-foot setback. The length of the building is a little bit unknown. It looks like it's over 150 feet long and maybe 45 feet tall for a 3-story building with the pitch of the roof. So my math calculates about 85% of the woods that I'm abutting will be destroyed, eliminated. So this is kind of the contractor did draw me a picture of my point of view from my home, the 20-foot buffer zone, and this. So what's missing from this drawing, this is my home, this is the building. What's missing is kind of my point of view. I did a little math homework here. So from 50 feet with a 3-story building, from 50 feet from my fence looking up, this radius is 50 degrees up. So 0, 90, I'll be looking straight at the back of that building. So it's quite large. So I'm not really opposed to the entire project and the build, but I am opposed to
building on the Whiteman Street buffer. It'd be nice to keep that buffer zone in place as it has been. So please consider that, or maybe just a reduction in size and scope of this project. Those are the two things I'd like you to consider. That's really all I have. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Richard McEachran, 23 Augusta Way. Thank you for the opportunity to hear my input. I am here to oppose this project. And I have just a very brief list here. I'll make it simple. It's just too much density. Someone mentioned that the 4-story buildings are going to be 56 feet high. That's from the ground level in the development. If you stand behind the buildings on St. Andrew's Way, you're going to be looking at 56 plus another 15 or 20 up in the air to see the roof of that building. With the number of units, 394, we're talking somewhere in the ballpark of 600 to 800 people. And that translates into 600 or 800 cars. I don't know where they're all going to park, but that's not my problem. And all of this with a single egress in and out of the property. So all those cars, the school buses, and let's not forget the honey wagon that's going to be coming in there. Who knows what the regularity is going to be for the honey wagon doing its visits, but it's going to go in there, it's going to spend some period of time in there, and then leave. It has to use that single egress. Now,
I'm sorry, what's a honey wagon?
I was wondering if anybody was going to ask that question. If you lived in a house that had a septic tank, occasionally you have to have the septic tank pumped out. So a tank truck comes and the nickname is a honey wagon. And it comes and it pumps out the honey out of the septic tank and takes away the sediment of the so-called honey ingredients, okay, and brings them somewhere else.
I knew exactly what it was.
And just a side comment, some people tend to honeycoat things, no pun intended. It's really not wastewater treatment, it's sewer treatment that we're talking about here. It's a sewerage treatment plant, raw sewerage. Now, if we can agree that we're going to have somewhere between 600 and 800 people living on this property, with 600 people, that's 39,000 gallons of water coming from the North Chelmsford Water District through a pipe onto that property and never leaving that property. 39,000 gallons every single day of the year. If you have 800 people, that's 52,000 gallons every day going into the ground. If you want to really be crazy about it, you can do the math. It's over 16 million gallons a year going into that ground. And that's all I have except for 2 observations. One observation is, having lived in eastern Massachusetts all my life, I was born and brought up closer to Boston, then I moved out to the suburbs. For the last 50 years, what have all the suburban towns been doing? They've been putting in sewerage lines to get people off of septic because they don't want the ground contaminated. For 50 years, all the towns have been doing this. So if we go with a sewage treatment plant of this density, aren't we going backwards in the wrong direction? And my second observation is, I've been to 4 or 5 of the meetings with Trumbull Crowe making their presentation, and there was a Q&A a couple of times and everything. And then, a couple of people get up and they applauded them for their work ethic and their presentation and their availability to answer questions, and I don't disagree with that. They're doing a fine job, they're doing their job. I have no problem with that. But that's not the lens that I want to look at this project through. I don't want to look at it through smiling faces and handshakes. I want to look at it through a lens of critical questions and what is possible down the road 10 or 20 years after that project might be completed, and what headaches might be incurred by the abutters. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have someone online, Florence, who would like to speak. Florence. Hello, Florence.
Okay. All right. I'd like to introduce myself. I live at 17 St. Andrews Way in the Meadowwood condominium community. We purchased our unit in September 2013. When the home inspector came to inspect our property, the first thing he said, after he looked up the hill at the UMass site, was, "I'd be worried about what's going to happen up there." The property was an absolute eyesore. This was after the fire, I guess. We weren't here for the fire, so I'm not sure. So I've been following what's going to happen here. And I'd like to say that the Trammell Crow team has, in my mind, made a good presentation. They've been very responsive to the neighbors. Of course, we're not going to get everything, but I look at it this way: the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And I've heard lots of rumors about what might happen here. And I would not be happy living in a neighborhood that had some of the projects that were rumored to move in here. And so I've come here on Zoom, of course, just to speak in favor of the project. And I hope the planning board will move forward with it so we can move along and get this all behind us and have a nice community next door. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence. Thank you, Florence. Next.
Hi, Mike Fulton, live at 8 Muirfield in the Windermere development. An abutter of the property, actually close enough that I had to call the police about 5 times last summer because people kept breaking into the building, ripping the plywood off, and some of the homeless people were living up there. You know, if I had my first choice, I'd love to see it stay the way it is. It's beautiful up there. There's, you know, rabbits, coyotes, all kinds of stuff, but I like to feel like I live in the real world, not fantasy land. The owner of that property right now paid over $3 million for that. They've got, my guess, conservatively over $1 million in cleanup costs incurred. Something's going to happen with that property. Question is, how much control are the abutters in the town going to have over what goes there? I'm close enough to see or hear, maybe not quite as close as some of the people down the end of St. Andrews. And frankly, when my wife and I first scouted that area over there, we looked down there at the houses at the end of St. Andrews on the left, and I looked up on the hill at the buildings that were there, and I said, you know, we're not buying here. I don't know what's going to happen up there, but I don't want that in my backyard. It is real close down there, I know. The proposal that Trail of Crows brought, I think, is a good proposal for the property. We all agree that they've done a good job of meeting with the abutters, continuing to tweak the proposal. They've moved the buildings back from the property lines, even further in than the existing buildings were up there. I could see the roof of the end building from my deck before. They were going to put fencing, plantings, all kinds of accommodations. They're going to build a complex that's an above-average quality complex. We're not talking about just an average building. This is an upscale development. They've granted an easement over about, I'd say it's maybe 2 acres of space down there, what used to be the horseshoe pits for Meadowwood, which I can see from my kitchen window. And frankly, so that they've granted an easement to Meadowwood so that they will have control over that, and Trammell Crow is not gonna build on that property. And frankly, if I was building a development up there, I would put every ugly part of that development down on that piece of land. Sheds, garages, storage, so that my tenants didn't have to look at it. Trammell Crow has agreed, they're gonna grant an easement, so Meadowwood can keep that, nothing's gonna be built on that land. I think that's a big give right there and even though I'm not in Meadowwood, I can see that from my kitchen window. Last thing I say is based on the 2020 census, my understanding is the town is now under the 10% threshold for a 40B development. I don't want to see somebody come in there with a proposal that they're not even going to give me the right time of day when they put the proposal before the town. They need one comprehensive permit, that's it. You're not going to see 10 or 15 public meetings to get that done. And we're going to end up with something that we're not going to like. So I support this proposal as Trammell Crow has proposed, and is going to continue to be tweaked, I think, a little bit further before we end up with the final version to work on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Merrill, 161 Middlesex Street. I've got a couple proposals of my own. One is to have another access to the property, not only Princeton Street. If Trammell Crow could, it would probably solve a lot of these problems about the access and the congestion of traffic on Princeton Boulevard. Okay, now, after attending some of their meetings, which have been very informative, they're proposing to eliminate a catch basin at the top of the property, which flows in the opposite direction of Chelmsford. Now, I just want to bring it to the board's. I've been to the town engineer and spoken with her, and she knows nothing of the proposal, but that's going to bring all the top of the hill stormwater to Chelmsford side, where it normally flows the opposite direction. And just lo and behold, where they're building their sewage treatment plant is right where the proposed drain is being removed. So that if there is any problem with the sewer, it's coming right to Chelmsford and it won't go the opposite way, which would be the natural flow of the water where their proposal of the treatment plant is going. I just want to bring those two things, and I like to hear of the appeal of the zoning commission here. There is going to be in the future an appeal to this whole process, correct? We don't know. We don't know that yet, okay.
If I can clarify, the proposal is to revise the proposed bylaw to include a provision that allows for a direct appeal to the courts, rather than having to wait until the developer gets around to pulling a building permit. This has to do with in the issuance of a site plan approval by the planning board after the town meeting approves the zoning change. If the town meeting doesn't approve the zoning change, we're never getting to that point.
Okay, well, my point was just the elimination of this drain, I think, is going to cause problems where Chelmsford's just beginning their new stormwater treatment facilities and what have you. Now, we're going to get a lot more than we bargained for with the removal of this catch basin. I just wanted to bring it out in front
Have
of
you
the...
brought that up at a meeting?
Yes, I did. Actually, I've had two people, a female from Whiteman and myself have been questioning, and the particular lady that lives on Whiteman commented on that issue, and their response was, if there's any problem, we'll take care of it then. And I want to meet
be before the problem.
Yeah.
Like I say, that was their response, was if there's a problem with this situation, we'll take care of it.
Okay. Maybe we can
That
look
drain
into
is really, it's concerning me. It usually flows back towards where the old incinerator was. So we're getting all that water, rather than go to the old incinerator, we're getting it back towards Chelmsford side. I mean, that old incinerator, where that water travels is where this drain is being removed from.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that they keep the drain.
We appreciate it.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I'm Doug Chandler from 47 Augusta Way. First, let me say I agree with what my neighbor on the TV screen up there said, and several people here have said, which is Tremel Crow has been doing a good job, and this is probably as good as we can get, although we'd all prefer the beautiful brick buildings to have been preserved by the state and the university. We'd all prefer a nature preserve up there, but I think that's probably, as several people have said, it's about all we're going to get. My question is for the town. Several people have also talked about the sewage. So I realize this is not the sewer commission, which might be the right venue, but you folks are planning commission and development and town council and everybody. Is Lowell and Chelmsford, are Lowell and Chelmsford planning to do anything about the capacity problem? Is there a long-term plan to improve Duck Island or put in bigger pipes to Lowell and things like that? Do any of you know that question?
Question of the week.
Yeah,
Are we just going to live like this for decades and
No,
the rest of our lives?
I mean, I can't really answer that specifically, but I do, just from seeing what's happening, is the town is in the works of doing things. They're not just sitting still. I don't know if it's the time now, Evan, any sort of an update you would have?
Just very, very briefly, there is no long-term solution. The select board, with the town manager and DPW, are actively engaged with consultants, studying options and solutions, short, intermediate, and long-term solutions. So that's actively being assessed and studied.
When I first moved to town in 1983, the sewers were just being voted in at that point, and it's been a wonderful thing with what we've gotten done. But I can't believe that we're going to be growth limited or return to septic tanks, as several people have said. So, thank you very much. I know it's not your problem, but thanks for the answer, Evan.
It's our problem. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you. Be real quick. My name is Richard Labossiere, 1 Augusta Way in the village of Meadowwood. And people are saying, what's going to happen to that land? I wake up every day and I look out any window and it's right there. I'm the first building coming down Augusta Way that's actually in Meadowwood. And so I've been to a couple of the meetings, and Tremel Cove people came over to the house, and I said, okay, what am I going to see when I wake up in the morning? And they brought their landscape guy over, and he talked, and from what's there, I can see I'm happy. I'm going to just see the same trees I'm seeing now, maybe in the winter, a little bit of a roof, but I'm okay. And then my backyard has this drain that's being taken out, as the gentleman said. Where is he? And I know where that water's going. Right now, it's in my backyard. It's going into the spill well that's coming off the hill. Well, Trumbull Cove came in and said, yeah, we know what that. We own that water, and we'll have to make sure it doesn't go down there anymore. And so what they're going to do is they have to take care of that water, and they know that. And they were very upfront, and with both myself and my wife, and they came and they said, okay, this is what we're going to do, and I'm happy with what they're going to do. Now, as far as number of units and cars and sewerage and all that stuff, they have the technology, from what I saw, to handle almost any problem they're putting in it. It's not new technology, it's brand new. It's not brand new, it's new and proven technology that's going to be able to take care of what they call the megaplexes, where we have to build places so people can live, because the world's going crazy with the number of people. And I'm for this project, even though myself and Mike from Windermere, we're the closest to it. And I'm gonna hear kids playing in the playground now, so that's okay with me. That's fine. And so it's what who, like I said, who devil you know, as opposed to the devil you don't know. There's no devil here. These people are very professional. They really came across very well, and they've listened to people. They've given a lot of time and effort, and I just hope that we can get everything approved and get this passed, whatever the voting number of people who have to vote. And we've invited people down to the community to walk around with Helen, myself, a few people came and looked, and we have a very nice place, and Tremel Cove is gonna protect that to the best of their ability. And you can't ask for anything more than that, other than, and what Mike mentioned, he said, you know, we don't know who's coming in, someone's gonna build on that property, and if this doesn't work, and this takes care of the Council on Aging, seniors, the Tremel Grove's basically giving them the land to build the building on that they have to build, and taking care of the sewer and the water treatment and the sewer as well. And so, if, you know, it's the thing, there's been so much negative about building and stuff. There was an article in the, Boston Magazine this summer that said, don't Nantucket my Newburyport. And the people in Newburyport kept saying, no, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And so finally, the builder that was there just walked away. He's selling all his property. Guess who's coming in Newburyport? 40Bs, right on the waterfront. That's what's going to happen there, and I don't want to see that in Chelmsford. Not a 40B, but that many. There'll be like 800 units in that place. So I'm for it. I'm the closest to it, and I welcome it. I'm retired, so anybody who wants to come down 1 Augusta Way, it's a private property, but I'll be glad to take anybody who wants to trespass. We'll gladly take them around and show them what a nice place we have, and that's what we're trying to protect. And Tremel Cove is partners in that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
If you were going to be looking at an entire building instead of just a roof, would you still be
Excuse me, can you just direct your questions to us, please?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, sir, that's all.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? If you'd like to, you can.
No, there you go.
Yeah, here we go. I think everybody listening on TV and in this room knows who I am. I'm Helen Blasioli at 19 Augusta Way.
Nice to see you, Alan.
I'm sure everybody's thrilled. But I've heard a lot of comments, and I'm going to go a different way than even Mark thought I was going to go. I moved into Meadowwood in 1998, so I've been there almost 24 years. And when I moved in there, it was a small little 71 units, and we were encompassed by beautiful trees, and we had to fight Windermere. We had to fight the builder for Windermere, and I tell you, we fought him off for 2 years. And there's no stopping progress. And something is going to come into that unit up there. But in 2004, I got a hold of all the paperwork that's listed in the Lowell Courthouse on the UMass property. And we had the first right of refusal for that property up until 2014, when I, with my high school education, had no clue that I had to be on top of it and stop the University of Mass from taking that away from us. Because we had plans to do just finding somebody like Tremel Crow and making sure that it got in there. We didn't know all this other stuff. But I'll tell you, before Tremel Crow, Hanover builders came to us, and they talked to us before they talked to the town. And I haven't missed a beat on anything that's going in up there or in our development. I'm the president now. I've been on this board for 19 years, and I know what's going on. And let me tell you, if this town doesn't get behind this development, we are not going to be able to say that we've got anything that's going to help us as a town more than they are. There's nothing. It's not, if they're not putting in a sewer system or anything else, or putting in a waste treatment center, and I'm sure that they can talk about that better than I can. I just know that they're getting rid of all the problems we have. We've had cars coming in, we've had to call the cops, we've had to get people off of their property over and over and over again. We've had water in the backyard, we have spent a fortune. And let me tell you, we're now spending a fortune because the builder screwed us so royally when they put in Windermere. And Trummel Crow is not going to do that to us again, because anybody that goes in there, I'm going to make sure that we're protected and the town is protected. And as for the buildings, he's moved them, he's done everything. So I have never heard him say, no, I can't do that. Maybe he doesn't like some of this stuff, but he's listened to the neighbors. And that, to me, is a big thing. And I know I'm boring all of you because you've all heard me before, but this builder is like nothing I've ever seen in my life. It's phenomenal. They're phenomenal. Who goes into houses and talks to these people? Who rushes up and says, oh, you have a problem? Let me solve it. And then brings other people to solve it. Nobody has done that. I'm a town meeting rep. I've never seen this before. And I think that anybody, including the town meeting rep people that are sitting at home who have refused to come in and talk to us and come see, maybe.
Can I excuse you 1 second?
Yeah.
If you could in the back, just please keep it down, because it's echoing up here. Thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just think that your town meeting reps have to not think that night, oh, my neighbor says I'm going to vote no, so I'm going to vote no. Know what you're voting on. How about if you're going to run again this coming election, you know what you're voting on. Get out there, because I'll tell you, I have never spent as much time on a project that what I had to vote on as I have on this one. And I've tried to educate, along with Susan, anybody that had to vote on this, we've tried to educate them. If you're not educated, it's not our fault. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Helen.
Sorry.
Good evening. My name's William Livingston. I currently live at 7 Dornock Circle, North Chelmsford. I object to the changing of the zoning laws. I bought a home in a residential area, and that's what I expected to live in over the years. I've been at Windermere for approximately 15, 16 years. I love the town of Chelmsford. I'd like to keep the forest area that is up where the university is. And I look at the 4-story buildings. I'm not in favor of that. We're in a residential area, and you've got a incline of about 20 feet where the buildings would start to be built at. So you're talking 56 feet and another 20 feet. You're going to be seeing those buildings at some point in time, because those trees are only 60 feet, and the simple math, you're going to be seeing these buildings. I think you're going to see a lot of traffic in that area. I'm opposed to the changing of the atmosphere, and I just like to keep everything as residential. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carrie Duffin. I'm from 270 Princeton Street. When we moved into there, we lived near Crystal Lake, and in 1989 we moved it to 270 Princeton. It was all trees. Windermere wasn't there. I mean, I love all you guys. You're very good neighbors. But it was nice to have the greenery. When I get up in the morning now, if this 4-story building is going to be built, when I look out my bedroom window, I'm going to see a 4-story complex from my room. I'm really worried about the traffic. There was traffic when UMass Lowell was there. They closed. It's lightened up a bit, but once all these people move in and all the population is growing around us, it's going to cause more traffic. And I'm just worried about the one entrance and exit way up onto Princeton Street, because it's going to be right in front of my house. And there's already accidents out there as it is. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Is there anybody else? Anybody online? Colleen? Checking.
I'm here.
Oh, hi.
My name is Susan Tanner, and I am a resident of Meadowood Community. I reside at 27 St. Andrews Way. I'm a relatively new resident. I've been there for almost 6 years now. When I first moved into the community, I can tell you the dilapidated, crumbling buildings that were on the UMass campus were a great concern to me. We saw constantly kids, vagrants, a lot of things, and I think there's evidence. There's been many things on YouTube of people that have gone up there and done documentaries on the property itself. I can tell you that I am fully in support of the development of the community by Trammell Crow for a number of reasons. Many have been already stated. One of my principal reasons is that one of the town assessors actually said to me, Susan, your property value is actually going to be protected by this development. That's an important thing. I am a senior citizen, like all the other residents there.
Most of us.
And, you know, we have to, it's not like, for many of us, that home is our investment for the future. I want that investment protected, and I really feel that the development by Trammell Crow will ensure its value and actually increase its value. So I'm a big proponent for that. Many of the things that Mike Fulton has said and other members in support are just things that I could easily reiterate. I don't need to. I just fully support the development. And I've been involved in that property since that one building collapsed in February of 2020. I actually called the EPA out of concern. So I think that I have a deep commitment to it and a deep commitment to the other residents of my community as well as the town of Chelmsford. So I urge your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I talk twice if it's short?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Doug Chandler, 47 Augusta Way again. When my parents lived in Japan, they learned a term which is very applicable here. We all wish we could keep the woods and the beautiful place. The Japanese call that borrowed scenery. Unless you're backed up to conservation land or a public park or something like that, you're on borrowed time until somebody builds something on private property that they own.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. Maria May. I live at 51 St. Andrews. I'm actually a very new resident, just a little over a year and a half. We moved in with the intent that it was a very nice, quiet neighborhood. Something's gonna go there. Let it be something that someone is gonna work with the community. Nobody wants anything to go there, least of all us. Like I said, we moved there, it was peaceful, you could hear a pin drop. The work that's being done on Technology Drive comes right across the pond. We live down in the cul-de-sac, so we're pretty adjacent to it. But again, I don't know of anybody who would reach out to the community the way that this company has, at least not in my lifetime, short lifetime that it is for some of you folks here. Comparatively. Again, none of us want anything to go there. We want it to stay the way that it is, but something is. And again, like Florence said, let it be the devil we know, who's going to at least have the decency to work with the community and the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just have one short, sorry, Mike Fulton, 8 Muirfield there. Just one short question. The property was used originally by the Middlesex County Training School, and then UMass Lowell ran a school there. Even though the property apparently is zoned residential, a question to the board, maybe the development director, is could someone go in and as of right put another institutional use like a school on that property?
If it were.
Yeah, any exempt use under zoning act could go in there.
And what would qualify as an exempt use? for that?
Educational use, religious use.
Somebody could build a church
Yeah.
on the property, or a school.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So you want a motion to
I don't know if
continue the public hearing? or-
Colleen, is there anyone else?
Got an old lady with her arm up there.
Nobody online.
Okay. Ma'am? are you- And after that, we'll make a
Yeah,
motion.
let's- Do you want to continue? or you
Jan
wanna-
Spence, 4 Door Knock Circle, Windermere. I have many concerns about this project, and I have spoken quite a bit with Mr. Baranski, who's been trying to be very, very helpful. However, the concerns are the increase in traffic. This is a residential area. Windermere is a cut-through for people trying to avoid the light at North Road. They come just into Augusta Way, and then they cut down right across Windermere and come out on Fairview. We maintain our own roads. We pay for our own insurance. We're a private entity. We need some kind of protection about this. And we've talked about the signage possibly going on Princeton Street. However, that is a state road, and my experience in the past has been to get signage on a state road is not an easy thing to do. Sometimes the state can be difficult to deal with. I've been a town meeting rep for almost 30 years, and I've lived in town since 1968. So I've seen these things going around and around and around. The other issue is if you're putting 800 people on 23, essentially, buildable acres, these people are not all always going to stay on that property. They're going to be bike riding, younger people rollerblading, whatever. We're private property. How do we contain that aspect? Now, Meadowwood does have no trespassing signs, and trust me, nobody pays attention. And the cars cutting through there, they're not paying attention to it either. And it's a major concern for us. And I don't like to tie up too much of your time. I know Mr. Baranski has tried to be very helpful in answering a lot of these questions, but I'm concerned with the density of that development. And what I've seen in the last 10 years in town is we're going more and more to these high-rise apartments. You know, it's not doing a service to the town to use the limited acreage we have left to continue to build these types of apartments. Personally, I am not for this development at this point in time. Anyway, I understand Trammell Crow has been wonderful in their presentations, and every time I've spoken with Mr. Baranski, he's tried to answer my questions. There are some questions that don't have a ready solution. We're going to be the people that have to live with those iffy situations, and it's very concerning as a taxpayer in town. And I just would ask that you consider this in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think,
Town meeting rep? Can I speak?
yes, yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, I live at 167 Dunstable Road, and I'm a town meeting rep, and I'm going to get to vote on this. And I noticed in the paper, it said that there are going to be over 500 parking spaces. Well, apparently there's going to be 780 people there. It's going to be a lot of traffic on Princeton Street, and I drive through there and it's congested now. I was wondering why there wasn't mixed use presented. You know, 129. They talking about putting high buildings up there and stuff, and the ground floors and stuff. They're going to allow them to use it for business, and that keeps people living and using and not going out on the road. You know, it keeps it contained. I was wondering why we don't have a mixed-use concept for any big multi-story building complex like this. Or do we? Nobody heard me, I guess.
No, we hear you. No, we hear you, we're listening. Is that all you have?
I'd like to see less traffic on Princeton Street. I mean, this thing is gonna really, make it horrible to try to get down that road, but, so, and my fix would be for you guys to, try to encourage use of that site so that people could live there and work there and not be going out onto the, plugging up our roads and making it hard for everybody.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. It's not the plan in front of us right now, though. Does anyone else have anything, anybody else on Zoom, Colleen, or?
We can continue this.
All right, after David, we're going to go ahead and...
Then we'll continue?
We'll continue.
Okay.
David?
Hi, good evening. My name is David Hedison. I'm the director of the Chelmsford Housing Authority, and I'm part of the team where we're going to be putting in, hopefully, the 54 units of senior housing. And with the 54 units of senior housing, it's going to be 100% affordable. And most of the seniors that are living in our housing do not have cars. We typically see where we use like a 0.75 for the residents that are living in our senior housing. Trammell Crow, I want to say, is the fourth developer that we met with. We initially went forward and wanted to purchase the site. And as David Rand had mentioned, we were looking at mixed use potentially, using some new market tax credits, bringing in some training programs for lower income individuals, and developing that site with a much higher, with similar density for families of low income. And that would be possible with the size of the site and the cost of the site. We would have to bring in significant resources from the state and federal government. That project there would be looking at about 300 to 400 units plus area for training. So it was not going to be a magic wand to incorporate housing and a training site or multiple use. One of the things that we looked at was the fact that there was a restaurant right across the street. And I had said this before, we were dealing with a Wild West situation where the Glenview was there. There wasn't really any clear entrance or exit from that site. And when we were looking at that project, our concern was the increase in traffic with a restaurant with over 100 seats, generating over 400 cars in that area. And that was a concern. Sadly, when the Glenview closed, it provided an opportunity to say, we're seeing an overall decrease of 400 cars per day, and it will give us some strength in being able to fight for 400 units of 100% affordable housing with some training programs. Many people would be opposed, for the mere fact we'd be coming forward with a 40B. We did not win the site, but we still remain interested. We hope to go forward with Trammell Crow and at least see 54 units of senior housing developed. But like with all things, if this doesn't move forward, we are prepared to try and work with Alice, the community, the state and federal government, with some of the additional funds that are coming forward for infrastructure, and come forward with another project. We always try to be a good neighbor, but the severe need for affordable housing is there, and we'd be happy to move forward with the project, on our own, which would not be, I think, something the neighbors would really like to see or the community would like to see. So I've accepted our 54 units and are happy to see that population served. So thank you.
Thank you very much, David.
All right, okay. Well, we've been at this for a good bit, had some good input. I am going to suggest, and I will move, that we continue the public hearing. Give it one more shot. Do you think perhaps we can wrap it up?
What date? Because the original plan was to wrap this up before the Select Board's meeting on the 20th.
Well, we could try.
I think at your last meeting with the proponent, you guys had a discussion about a special meeting.
Yeah.
Likely for next week.
That certainly could be done.
It's fine with me. Henry?
Yeah, no problem with that.
Deidre?
That gives us enough time to notice it. Do you don't need
We
2
don't-
weeks for public?
No, this is a
The notice will be
continued
the
public
continuance.
Okay.
It's just 48 hours posting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, you all set with that too? So-
Yeah, that's okay, so we would shoot for next Wednesday?
Did that work for you guys?
Yes, either, I think we had discussed Tuesday or Wednesday, the 14th or the 15th.
Yeah. In general, I mean, we planning board people are so fixed on Wednesdays.
7 PM?
Yes.
So
Works for me.
which date?
It's the 15th,
Wednesday, the 15th.
Yeah. So the 15th.
and that would be.
If this room isn't available, I'll find a different room, but hopefully we'll be available. So before you continue, do you have action items for, requests from the proponent?
I'd say they've heard people talk. I think.
Got to be board direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys got to take ownership of the hearing.
Yeah.
It's your
Okay,
hearing.
so, I mean, really, the concerns that the people have expressed was obviously density, was parking. I mean, I don't,
Traffic.
yeah.
That keeps coming up.
You know, those are the items. Also, I know you've been very good with all the neighbors. We've heard that over and over. Is there any way we can reach out to the neighbors on that other street to see if there's anything else that can be done to help shield? Is that something that, is it Reitman or?
Reitman?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's something that can be discussed too, and to try and work on that. But other than that, I think we've said enough with that for action items. Anything else, Deidre?
The egress?
We did talk about that, and I don't think there was a way to do another egress, right? We brought that up before, but.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of wetlands in the front there.
Right,
We had
right,
discussed it with the traffic, excuse me.
yeah.
We had discussed it with the Traffic Advisory Board and also with the Fire Department, and a second means
It was
of
no.
access was not found to be necessary. If we do find some suggested areas where we can improve the project, certainly to the board comments or the butter comments, I would like the opportunity to work on revising it with council, and then the board can take another look at the overlay for the next meeting. That way, if the board wants to accept some changes to the overlay, we have it prepared for the next meeting.
Yes.
So I'd just like the board's permission. If we do find some revisions, we'll come up with some suggested language, and then the board can look at it the next meeting for their
Perfect.
review.
That's
and approval.
ideal.
Yep, that would be great.
Okay, so I've moved to.
Excuse me, just a point of procedure.
Yep.
Can we just make sure town council is available?
I am available.
He is available.
And I put it in my calendar.
All right,
Okay, so I've moved that we do this a week from tonight.
continue to the 15th. All in favor? Second by Henry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nancy?
Aye.
Aye.
Erica.
Erica?
Aye.
Okay.
It's hard not seeing their pictures or anything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tim, I gotta get out of here.
Yes, please.
Gotta go deal with Dad.
All right, so
I'll drink your
wait
beer.
a couple minutes till they clear out. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
It'll be
yeah.
a continuation of this.
That's
Yes.
correct, yeah, we continued the public. Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I put this all
Did you guys adjourn?
in the file.
No, we have.
I'll have them signed tonight.
Yep.
I have one.
Excellent.
Where's the point that?
So, Melissa,
Yeah.
are we not doing the development agreement discussion? You better get,
You're peeling off board
I
members. with
appreciate
this.
your time, I
We have
really
one
do.
out
Thank you,
here.
sir. Thank you, have a good day.
We're still live. Yes, we're still the development.
Yes.
Take it right up? Yep.
No, we're not going anywhere.
We're not gonna.
Sure.
Yep. We appreciate it. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Legal notice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, if you have further
Oh, the link
comments, you can
definitely
always
works.
just send us something, email us
Yeah.
something, or send it to Kim, and we can.
We appreciate you taking the time.
No, they still just run the development agreement.
Yep.
Talk to Melissa about it.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much for coming. Thanks.
Keeps us off the streets and out of trouble.
What was that section that, that George had on the two-story? I can't find that.
I don't know. I mean, he's,
It's true, I want to talk about two-story, I mean, whole story.
14-2.
Where is that?
14-2. Right there. Page 5.
Because I did see it, I can't get it again.
I think you should stay.
Excuse me, guys, if you
Much more
could
useful
clear the room,
conversation with
please,
you
if
here.
you're not gonna stay, because we're gonna continue our meeting, please. Gentlemen?
Okay.
All right, we can now continue with the development agreement, review and discussion. Do you, Deidre, did you have anything on the development agreement?
Well, I mean, I already said it.
You already said it pretty much, yep. Mike?
I don't have anything additional. I think it's been fairly well worked. If the proponents decide to make any adjustments in the bylaw, it might involve adjustments to the development agreement, but I will deal with that one when and if it happens.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm fine.
Okay, Nancy? Nancy?
Yeah, no issues at this time.
Okay. Erica, did you have anything?
It to be e-restricted.
No, not right now, thank you.
Okay. Mike?
No, I think changes have been made already.
Yeah, I think it's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
You know what, I have just a point of clarification. I got confused by what George was saying about the parking. So, the parking for it looks like to have to go by the, bylaw, you guys would need 340 spaces, is that right? 1 space per unit for the studio and 1 bedroom, 2 spaces per unit for the 2 and 3 bedroom units, and then 1 per 3 units for guests, so that would be 340 for the structure, and then whatever, 354 divided by 3 is 118. So it would be 340 plus 118, so that would be 458, is that right? And you actually have how many?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay.
That's incorrect.
I'm pulling up the slide.
Yeah, just if you give technology a second, we actually have a breakdown of the parking. So
Well, yeah, I'm looking at that, that's
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm
in
going
there.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to go through with the breakdown per unit and then look at it for visitor parking, just so we can pull it up so everybody can see it.
Okay.
And then who's still here on Zoom, I think we're just waiting for
He doesn't get the talk.
Colleen to give him back permission.
Right.
But if I can, I'll just start speaking about the parking.
Yeah.
So I kind of, I guess I have 2 comments, and I don't want them to be, come across as confrontational, which even saying that means that it's going to sound confrontational, which is not my goal. We need to have sufficient parking for our residents.
Right.
That is 100% certainty. And if I don't, I have a project that doesn't perform as expected. That's really bad for me. So we think a lot about parking. I know I've said this, we think a lot about parking. And frankly, the metric that we care about the most is parking spaces per bedroom. And so thinking broadly of the parking, and that's inclusive of visitors, we shoot for 1 parking space per bedroom. And that we are presenting an extra ditch over that, right? Yeah, we'll get it up on the screen, right? That is the metric that we use, that we know from our operations works. Now, I'm stepping away from what you guys want. I'm just telling you what our worldview is. The world, in terms of parking, is rapidly changing. And in fact, many of the municipalities in eastern Massachusetts have laws that disincent additional parking.
Right.
There's FAR penalties in Cambridge, Somerville for too much parking. So that's kind of where the world's going. And again, I'm just giving some context that when we look at the parking, we think about a lot about what we are very certain we need, and then we think about it in the context of the rest of the world. We've looked at RM really based on Nan's feedback as something to look at, but we've never said that our goal is to be RM. So
Right.
when we talk about parking in the context of RM, we're not trying to be there. What we are trying to be is as compliant as it makes the planning board and neighbors happy about that. And if we can get this on the screen, I mean, generally speaking, what we're doing is the RM requirements for, which you have in your deck, is for studios, 1 space per unit. 1 beds, 1 space per unit, and then 2 beds and 3 beds, 2 spaces per unit. And we are,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Have you reopened the public hearing?
This is the discussion.
this is about the development agreement, not on the
This is the discussion.
bylaw. So, and, well, we'll get this up at some point. So, great, thank you. So the delta really is in how many spaces we're providing per visitor, okay? And the metric that I think the town uses as the basis of their RM zoning is 1 visitor parking space for every 3 units.
Right.
And where we are presently is at 1 visitor space per 7.1 units. And that's really effectively the difference between what is desired in RM as its own zoning area and what we're proposing. We did receive feedback at one of the last public presentations from Mr. Zaroulis on whether we could incorporate some banked areas for parking. And the idea is that if it was needed, there were spaces that will be allocated to accommodate additional parking. We have identified an area that we can add 15 tandem spaces, 30 total spaces. It's in an area that's already been disturbed.
If I may interject,
Oh,
just, we may
sorry.
be a little bit outside of the realm of the development agreement. I think
Yeah.
the traffic actually, the parking spaces actually go more towards the overlay, so I'm a little concerned that we're
Okay.
talking too
That's
much
fine.
about.
I didn't mean to be asking the wrong time.
That's okay. We're
I
just
can-
trying to figure out, because there is some mention, about traffic, about paying a space per
Right,
parking
right,
space in the
right.
development agreement, but there's not anything about
Fine.
wholesale
This
parking.
is why I was
numbers.
trying to encourage the board to
Right.
use the time during the public hearing.
Okay, I'll ask it next week, forget it.
That's okay. I just don't want to be out of order.
I mean, ultimately,
I'm
this is
sorry.
gonna come down to you guys deciding on what the final product is for the 20th.
Right.
You're not gonna figure that out other than
Yeah.
you talking to the applicant and
Yeah.
coming to a decision.
Right.
Okay, so let's stick to what was the agreement.
Yeah,
So
that's fine, I apologize.
anything else?
There was something, I felt like there was another thing too, sorry.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, so does anybody else have anything?
No, I think we're done
All
on
right.
the development agreement, at least unless and until there are changes made.
If I could ask a question, just for clarification. There was a question of whether we could, I wasn't clear if it was taking the in situ affordable units and converting those into.
Oh, no.
No, okay.
We want the units.
Right, okay. And then, so then the question was for incremental additional payments for units.
Right, so we had talked before about requesting a higher percentage. And like we had said, your building 15% and the additional 6 units paid to the PILO, it makes it up to 16%. But originally, when we were talking at earlier meetings and, I don't know, in general, at a work session, talking generally about affordable housing, we had talked about striving for a higher number. And then, there were so many asks that it didn't seem like we could achieve a higher number. But since one of the major asks isn't much of an ask at all, I was wanting to request that we revisit the percentage affordable housing, the PILO part.
Okay, and I guess what I was looking for is direction on, to the extent that we're able to provide additional funding, would it be towards the PILO for affordable housing?
I think it would
Or
be.
would it be towards the schools?
Well, I
Or is it
guess-
just a sum of money that if we can allocate,
Right.
that we can leave to the discretion of the planning board if that's within the proper
Well, I think it would have to
procedures?
be to the PILO.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay.
we don't have pools of money, we just have discretion over.
I just wanted to,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't
no, it
clear.
would have to be for the PILO.
I think there was a suggestion also, rather than contributing additional money to the PILO, to actually providing additional affordability by reducing from 80% area medium.
Well, yes,
area median
and I'm not
income to
overlooking that, and
60%.
that'll be part of our analytics. I just
Right,
want to
I-
understand, to the extent that there was additional payments, where the vision was that it should go. So I think I have clarity on that. And we will also look at the percentage AMI as well as we'll play with that. Okay?
Excellent, thank you. Okay. I think that is it on that. Anybody else have any feedback? Mike, anything?
No.
Nancy, you're all set, so I think we're all set on that.
Yeah, I think we're done with that one.
Unless, obviously, there's changes and they'll come back. So, we need a motion.
For what? To
continue, Evan, or?
That'll be an agenda item at your next week's meeting.
Okay.
All right, so we're all set with that for tonight then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That went so quick.
Okay.
Evan?
Thank you. Are we free to go?
Yeah, we're good for tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So the next,
Have a good evening.
Yep. Evan,
Night,
is
David.
it 6:30 or 7 next?
7.
7 PM next Wednesday. Okay. Next up, new business, old business.
Night.
Good night.
It's just a standing agenda item.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything, board members, liaison reports?
Yeah, we should discuss a little bit the status of the master plan committee. The master plan committee.
Could I, do
Yep.
you think it'd be worth, because we're missing members, to wait until next Wednesday to?
Well, Nancy's on here, she's on that,
Okay.
and, you know, if they'll probably have to mullen up anyway,
Okay, good enough.
so they'll get to listen to it.
Yep.
But the master plan committee wrapped up its activity at its last meeting. We have a letter drafted to the you know, just kind of people in the town in general. And I think at this point, we're ready to get this presented in full to the planning board and have the planning board decide what it wants to do with the master plan report, the master plan document.
When do you think that will happen?
Well, I mean, it can happen anytime. The document is available. What really needs to happen is the board needs to decide what it wants to do next. I mean, I think we've looked at it as much as I think anybody on the board really wants to dig in. I think we've had our conversations. The document is available. Where do you have it posted?
On the link, I'll send it
It's
out
on the
again.
link, yeah, send the link around. We have actually had discussions about the master plan committee things, in particular, an implementation committee. We had some conversation about that at our last meeting. I think we need to wrap it up and get it presented to the town. And
Procedurally,
procedurally, I think that's,
planning board historically has voted to adopt.
Yes.
yeah.
It then goes, and then under MGL law, that's a requirement, assuming you do a master plan. How you get there is, you know, your choice. Then from there, planning board presents to the select board. That's more informational. And then 10 years ago, it was presented at a very, very high level to town meeting.
Right.
The other step is planning board, and it's in the master plan as a recommendation, it's outlined in detail, to appoint an implementation committee.
So I have a comment. I listened to your conversation with Sam Chase
Oh,
about
thank you. I'm happy someone did.
kind of general thoughts on the master plan and also on the growth committee. And I also attended one of those Zoom meetings about guidelines for planning board members.
The training courses?
Training
Yep.
courses last night. And one of the things they reviewed on that was kind of the general goals and guidelines as per, I guess, Mass law. I haven't had a chance to go back and look at it. I wasn't expecting to talk about this tonight, but for master plans, and it seemed like, generally speaking, the whole point of a master plan is to be more prescriptive, which this one, I think we've all pretty well decided is not. And so I think it's the lack of a prescriptive aspect of this document that has led the town manager to seek guidance from the select board and forming a growth committee or whatever it's to be called. And I wanted to maybe suggest that maybe we should have maybe a multiple board, I don't know, it seems ridiculous to redo a master plan when you just did a master plan, but have a section of it that's more growth and prescriptive, that's maybe developed between the planning board and maybe the FinCom and maybe the economic development and maybe the select board, but that's shorter, but actually looks at what do we want to do? Like how where do we want to grow? How do we want to grow? What do we need? Like that it's not really laid out to my way of thinking in this document. I mean, would you guys agree?
I would, but, I mean, I don't know if are we gonna get into discussing more of this too? Because I don't.
I mean, it don't have to be detailed
'cause
tonight.
we,
I mean, I would like to answer
Yeah, go
Deidre's
ahead.
question. The 2020 update is essentially trends continued, and then it tells the planning board to go look at everything you've done over the last 10 years.
Right.
It's not nearly as prescriptive or strategic,
Right.
but it was with intent.
Right.
The lesson learned that I've heard over the last 10 years from planning board members in the community is that they didn't like the fact that the 2010 master plan was so detailed, and that staff and the board and others used it as saying, the debate as to what we want to do is over. We're now implementing what the master plan said.
Right.
So the update is strategically designed to be vague and obtuse, not to say anything strong or bold,
Right.
by design.
But we don't have to be
So-
bold or strong
Well, it
without
says
having
nothing.
an
It says
opinion.
nothing other than trends continued. Trends continued,
Yeah.
someone could say, UMass West supports it. It certainly doesn't say, don't pursue development. It continues to say, proceed with caution. Well, it said that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Right.
40 years ago. I like your idea. I mean, maybe the board says, we're putting a hold on the master planning process. We're going to wait to engage with the select board on their growth strategy, and then we'll add an addendum to the master plan.
Well, that can be done any time.
Sure.
I think, I still think, though, the sensible thing for us to do is to finalize the master plan as it stands.
If you like it, if you
you
like
like
what
it.
it says, then finalize it.
And then, I mean, that committee can continue its work if they so choose, and I suspect that they will.
The implementation committee?
Yeah.
The implementation committee is not doing the job of the planning board. They're not going to
Right.
debate growth policy.
Right.
They're going to ask the planning board,
No, I was
you know,
talking about the implementation
recommendation
committee. I was talking
150
about this.
says
this
go back.
No, I was talking about the committee or
The growth committee.
the growth committee.
Yeah, but
The
We have no,
implementation
we have
committee.
no idea what it really is.
monitor.
We don't know the timeline.
Yeah.
Doesn't appear to be any immediacy associated with
Yeah.
it.
Go ahead, Nance.
So if we look back at the 2020 plan, 2010 plan, it made recommendations for a number of other committees to be formed to do analysis and ongoing planning. And those committees actually formed, they provided their own reports with specific recommendations in it. I don't think the growth committee is any different than that, in that it is simply another function that comes out of the recommendations of the plan.
It's not even a recommendation in the master plan.
Yeah.
So there's a complete disconnect, or as Deidre said, maybe, for all I know, maybe it came to surface because people thought the master plan didn't hit the mark, or didn't say anything. I don't know.
Seen it, so.
I don't know, but
Well,
am
if that's the case, should we
frustrated.
send the master plan back to committee to do additional work?
I think the committee did exactly what it wanted to do. It wrote a report saying, planning board, go back and review everything.
Right, I mean, one of the things it said is for us to look at the trouble spots in the zoning. And now we have a major project coming at an industrial parcel in the middle of a residential neighborhood because nobody looked at the trouble spots in the zoning. And now someone's bought one of those trouble spots, and so it's landed in our lap. Like,
You're either prepared or you're not prepared.
right, so I think we should look at the trouble spots in the zoning, for one thing.
Yeah, but that's separate from the master plan, as it
Right,
stands
well, I
now.
think
That's
that,
something
maybe
we
that
need
should
to
be
do.
a job of the growth committee, but somebody needs to do it.
Yeah, I think the planning board needs to do that one.
Okay, so is this something we set a time for at another meeting to discuss
And we
further?
can put it on the next agenda, yeah,
Yeah,
or a work session, yep.
Yeah, we're sooner or later, we're gonna have to grapple with
honestly,
zoning realignment.
Evan, I too,
Otherwise, we're
like,
waiting for things to
I would've-
land.
No, you do them.
Right.
Don't wait for them, do them.
I would appreciate too, though, Evan, if you.
Make a motion.
Like, if we're going off track, maybe we all have to catch each other.
Yeah.
You know, please, let's rein it in. I mean, so we can stay on subject. And if you do notice it, Evan, I'm not an expert at it. I would love your little, Tim, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I personally have no problem going to 9:30, 10 o'clock.
No,
but,
I
mean,
get that, but it's not even that. But if we're getting off topic, we're not supposed to be.
No, no,
you know,
you're,
Master plan
Topic.
is new
not
business
this,
and
not
old
this.
business.
It was the previous.
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right, we can then set up at a next meet and have time so that we can talk about that
Yeah.
and figure out a plan and then implement it.
At our next regular scheduled meeting.
Regular schedule, not next meeting, the regular scheduled meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
First meeting in January. You're
Yeah.
not- You're not meeting on the 22nd, is that correct?
That's-
December 22nd?
Wait, when's
No,
the first meeting in
no.
January?
Okay, Canceled.
I wouldn't suggest.
No, I wouldn't say
No.
So that would be the first meeting in
We're
January.
meeting next
the
week
12th.
as well.
I'm going to Pops that night.
All right,
So we'll put it on for the 12th.
okay, excellent. Anybody else, liaisons, reports, anything, anyone?
Well, Board of Health and, I guess Select Board are both talking about the money. I don't think there's
The opera money.
the ARPA money and next the infrastructure money. I mean, I don't know if in trying to be planners, if there's anything that we should be doing that could somehow capture maybe some of the infrastructure money when it comes to be determined. I don't know.
Well, we're not a group that generates projects
Right.
by itself. That's not our function. We look at projects that are proposed and presented.
Yes.
We don't have any way to spend infrastructure money. The selectmen could do it, perhaps the Board of Health, but.
Well, I mean, we could do it for a study if we thought such a study
Yeah, the
was.
study is about as far as we could get
Right.
with infrastructure money.
Are you suggesting that the public investment should align with whatever growth
Yeah.
is wanted? Yeah.
Yep.
I think being a built-out community, a lot of it's repair and replace,
Yeah.
not necessarily expansion. But maybe there's some expansion involved. I just don't know enough about the specifics.
Well, maybe some way to look at the Center Village, for instance, as
Yeah,
a study.
I can send you the link to the select boards. I think it's 56 individual proposals, many of which were infrastructure related. You can review them. I mean, nothing related to center jumped out or strategic planning. It was nuts and bolts infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, water infrastructure, PFAS mitigation, things that are really, really needed because enough money hasn't been there to keep up with demand.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, excellent. Next. Motion.
Now move, guess I can move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Who's seconding that? Well,
Aye.
Aye.
That's Nancy.
Aye. Nancy?
Erica.
Erica? Good night.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you.